So most of the time in my personal photography, I have the luxury of combining multiple images that were literally shot at the same shoot. So whether I'm replacing eyes or replacing a face that's slightly out of focus or anything like that, most of the time there are very similar aspects of the images that I'm trying to combine, meaning the lens, the focal length of the lens that I'm using is usually going to be consistent between the two images that I'm trying to combine. And the lighting situation and scenario is also going to be consistent between the two photos, meaning like if I'm shooting on a cloudy day, that's going to be the same between both of the images that I'm trying to combine. So the color and the contrast are usually going to be very similar in the images. And also the perspective is probably going to be very similar because I'm not doing one shot from above looking down at the people and another shot from down below looking up at the people. And those are all of the things that really need to be considered when you start combining images together to create a composite. So those are the 4 things that are really important. Okay, so the perspective of where the camera angle was pointing when it took the photograph, that's the perspective. The lighting situation that the photos were taken in, meaning you can't have one photo from a cloudy day and have another photo where the sun was beating down without a cloud in the sky, and combine those images and expect them to look realistic or good, okay? Because there's such a difference in the lighting. And then the last 2 aspects are going to be color and contrast. So let's start talking about some visual examples of differences in perspective and also differences in lighting so that I can kind of show you so that you can visualize what I'm talking about. Let's jump over to the computer. So here is a photo of a studio, and you can see that if you kind of think about it, the photo is taken from a little bit of a relatively low directional angle, right? And so any photo, any person that we put right here in the middle of this frame is going to need to have a little bit of a similar angle in which it was photographed. So here is our first potential model for this image, and you can see that even though my masking is a little bit crappy, you can see that her direction of when she was photographed and how she was photographed is very similar to the image we're trying to put her in. Okay, so let's look at our next example, and here we have a guy, and you can see here that this is not working out very well. He was photographed from, it looks as if the photographer was even on a ladder, okay, photographing him from below. And then all of a sudden we try and put him on a background where the camera angle was almost closer to the ground, and you can tell that that's really not gonna work very well. All right, so we have our third model here, and I just added a little bit of additional contrast to her. And as you can see, her vantage point and perspective of how she was photographed definitely works better than this dude, okay? So hopefully you guys can see that. So what do we have to think about? Here are our 3 models, and you can see that the vantage point here is pointing down. The camera's pointing down at him. And here in these 2 situations, the camera is a little bit lower pointing up at the model. And so those are the 2 that tend to work out a lot better than this guy over here. So that is my first example. So the perspective between the shots really needs to match, okay? So that is step number 1. Step number 1, make sure the perspectives match on the images that you're trying to combine. Our next really important aspect to understand when combining images is going to be lighting. Not only the direction of the lighting, but also making the lighting match between images. If I turn on the visibility of my model that I'm trying to add to this image, let's just for a moment talk about the lighting that's hitting the model. So I'm gonna create a new layer here, and I'm going to use my brush tool, and let's use, neon green is fine. So the model, let's talk about the model. Where is the light hitting her? So we have a very large light source that's hitting her from this direction. And a really good way to see where the light is hitting your subject is going to be to actually zoom into the iris of the model in your photograph. And you can see not only the direction of where the lighting was coming from, meaning this direction, you can also see that it looks like a softbox. So it's a little bit of a softish quality of light as well. Okay, so we know that the light is coming from this direction, but then she also has a little bit of a rim light, which we can see here along her sweater and her fingers and also her hair here, and then also this rim here of the sweater. So we know that there's a light coming from that direction. But look at our background for just a moment. We have a light in the background, yes, we do, but we also have a big window here. So let's change our color and let's start to talk about the lighting characteristics of the background. We have our large light source shining light in this way. And then we also have a light source back here behind her. Let me turn off the layer of the model so that you can see that this is our other light source, okay? So while this works with the model in front, see how it's kind of showing a little bit? This does not work because this is the larger of the two light sources. So if this were the case, the other side of her would be illuminated, right? So what can we do here? We can select our background. Let's turn off our notes for a second. Let's select our background. We're going to hit Command or Control T to transform it. And then we're going to flip it horizontally. So we'll go to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. So now all of a sudden, the lighting is matching a lot more. As you can see, our larger light source, so let me erase over here, erase the red with my eraser tool. Let me just erase our background lighting characteristics now. Okay, so we're getting somewhere here. We have our large light source on this side, which does look now like it's shedding a big soft light on this side of our model. And then we have another light source back here in the corner that's going to be casting this rim light onto her. So all of a sudden now, the lighting situation seems to make a lot more sense, okay? I'm just going to delete this layer with all of my arrows on it. And there's a couple of changes that I wanna make to just make this model and the background just blend a little bit better. And so that's changing and tweaking the color and the contrast of my model to fix the background. So what's the first thing that I'm going to do? I'm going to take a curves adjustment layer and I'll call this modified contrast. And I'm going to clip it to the underlying model layer by holding Option or Alt and hovering my mouse in between the two layers so that it clips just to the layer of the model. And then I'm going to come in here and just tweak the contrast of my model just slightly. So before and after, you can see how just darkening the midtones really helps to bring these two images into a better, they just jive a lot better with one another. The other thing that I want to do, there's just a little bit too much blue in this image of my model. So I'll choose a color balance adjustment layer from up here in my adjustments panel. And then I'm going to choose to modify the highlights. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more yellow to the highlights of this image. And then again, I'm just going to clip the color balance to just the model. The same thing we did before. Hold Option or Alt and hover our mask between the two layers to clip it to just the model. And now she looks just slightly too green, so I might actually go back to my highlights and modify the magenta as well. Okay, but that's starting to look good. So we modified our contrast down here. We modified our contrast. Now let's change and modified color. All right, so before and after. There's one last step that I want to do just to make these two images look a little bit more cohesive, and that is to add a little bit of a blur to the background. So in order to do that, I can select my background layer, and from my filter menu, I can choose blur, blur gallery, and choose to add a little bit of a field blur to the background of my image. So we'll just decrease the blur. So we'll do a 10% blur. We're just blurring a little bit of the background, and that looks good. And now we're going to come up here and press OK. And all of a sudden, we are starting to build on this image and really create two images that look as if they were photographed at the exact same time. So that's the really exciting thing that I want to drive home for you guys, is that you can really start to modify not only the color and the contrast, but if the perspectives match and the lighting characteristics match, that's really going to prime you really perfectly in order to create some nice, realistic composites. So let's move on to our next chapter.